All right, we're back. We got a quick one today, but I want to start out with, does anyone have any questions concerning visuals and digital layouts? Anything that we talked about with topography and spacing? If not, I'll show you what I want to talk about. All right, Joanne, is there an easy way to convert pixels or font size and pixels? The easiest way to do it would just be, I don't know if there's like an easy way to convert them. Not that I know of anyway. I just design in pixels. And like with topography and spacing, or I mean, sorry, with digital design software like Adobe and whatnot, you can usually just set your preferences. But if you go into like an experience like this, yeah, here we go. Look at this cat right now. Are you kidding me? He would very much like some attention. So here you can just consider this pixels, right? So this font here is 100 pixels. That's kind of like the, it's not, it might not actually be like 100 pixels, but like that's just like the sizing itself. So there, you shouldn't have too many issues like converting. You should either be able to just like select pixels, or it should just be like the standard sizing that your design is, or your design tool is using. Let's see, for example, actually, yeah, I think that explains it. Does that answer your questions? Honestly, don't worry about it. Just use 100 if like, or just use the sizing that comes along with it for digital design software, especially like Studio. This is set to pixels automatically, so just follow that. As far as converting them, I don't really know. That's a good question. I think that's something we could look into. That's a really good question. Sorry. I'll look on that. I was looking at the pixel size of the font versus, oh, the pixels of the space. I'm looking at the pixel size of the font versus the pixel of the space. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure. Um, if you're, oh, you mean like the line spacing here? Okay, yeah. So kind of the same rule of thumb, right? So consider this size 100 pixels and consider this line spacing 100 pixels. That's kind of how the standard sizing goes for digital design. Um, so in the lesson, I said for like larger bodies of text, try not to go under the size of the actual font. So this, I wouldn't go under 100 pixels. I put it right at the edge. As you can see, we're kind of getting close, but it feels pretty good. Um, so really, as you're trying to size that out, if it needed to be double, right, I would just put 200 and consider that 200 pixels, even though that is like massive. Um, so I don't think you, for these, you don't really need to convert them. Just use the standard sizing within Studio or Editor or Figma or anything like that. Because it uses pixels as its reference point for sizing those things. Sorry, that was the longest, most convoluted answer to your question. But there you go. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, just use the numbers. How about that? Just use the numbers here. Uh, Standard should be like 1.5 of this, but for larger ones, it can be 1 to 1. Just use the numbers. That's what I should have said. Sorry. Any other questions? That's a great question, Joanne. So this is something I don't really know how to even characterize this, but when I was putting the slide deck together last night, I was looking at this slide in particular, and it's just a pretty minimal slide. If you've ever seen my slide decks before, I usually like to keep them extremely minimal with like a tagline, and that's about it. Um, so I'm not like competing for attention with my slide decks by just coding it with words, right? I put some images in there every so often, but for the most part, they're talking points, main takeaways, or something like that for what I'm talking about, and they work for me because oftentimes I don't have any time to script out any sort of presentation or webinar or anything like that. So I just use the like what is on the slide as kind of like my checkpoint, like, oh yeah, I remember this. That's what I need to talk about, sort of thing. So my slides are usually pretty simple, but as I'm putting this together, I couldn't quite figure out how I wanted to organize this text box in particular. And so it kind of got me thinking, what is the appropriate way to organize stuff like this? Because you'll deal with this a lot with headers and titles and stuff like that. And there isn't really like a guideline for how your line should look. Should it have like three up here and then a hanging down here? I know with a lot of times in like publishing and marketing and journalism, it's like you shouldn't ever have any like what do they call them, like orphans or something like that, like a single word on the bottom of a line, which makes sense for body text, but the rules don't really apply for larger headers, smaller amounts of text, titles, that kind of stuff. So as I was laying out the slide, I couldn't quite figure out the best way to lay it out. Do I do something like this, is which I ultimately landed on? Do I do something like that? Does that look better? Because at this point, that's what matters, is how it looks, right? Like it's going to read the same, but the closer you look at it, the weirder it starts to get, right? Like layout and on one line starts to feel a little strange, right? Like there's a whole lot of empty space where this could have gone. So that's why I eventually landed on doing this, but I still feel like it might be a little lopsided with a lot of the weight being here because there's more going on here. I also looked at doing something like this, right? Let's say that's in the middle-ish. That didn't look too bad, but then it wasn't cohesive with all the other ones that I did, right? Like this one felt good, but this one in particular was giving me trouble. And I was really focused on the actual layout of this title. So what do you think looks better? Did I choose the right one? Was it this, option A? Was option B the right way to go? Or was it option C? So that's option C. Oops, that's option B. Or option A. Which one do you think looks better? A? A or C? A or B? A. Okay, so this is important to be able to like analyze. Like your gut instinct says option A looks the best, but why does option A look the best? Or if you thought B looked the best, everyone said A, so I think generally like this is what we feel looks the best, right? Um, but let me kind of get it set up here. So considering all three options, why did this one look the best? B looks the best, but A is more cohesive with the rest. Well, that's what you had. So okay, so I should have. All right, as the, I should have just like brought this up and asked you. But okay, but Joanne, you think B looks the best, and this was this B? Yeah, this was B, right? So start to think to yourself why B looks the best. Not considering cohesion, just consider the actual visual layout, because this is something you're gonna have to do in your words only design challenge. Is the words and the formation of the words are gonna have to do a lot of the talking, right? Um, so think to yourself why B would look the best, or if you thought A looked the best. You like the square fit? Oh yeah, it fits in. Okay, yeah. Yeah. It's very square. It looks good, right? Like it's very so that one compared to was it this one? Yes. Compared to this one. If you like this one better than B, tell me why. If you like B better than A, tell me why. Reading it felt more clunky. So it was a readability thing for Kelsey. That's why you chose A. Any other thoughts on B or A and why? This is kind of like what I was alluding to when we started things off today is fine tuning and polishing, right? Without the fine tuning and polishing, I would have just taken the text box as it was formatted from, because I'm pretty sure I just duplicated like this slide or something like that, right? And I didn't change the size of the text box. Like, let me just grab this text box, and it wasn't that one, it was this one, right? Let me just paste it right here. Let me copy this. And so that's how it, like, if without any formatting, this is what it looked like when I first added it to the slide. Here, let me get this out of the way. And I was like, that looks kind of odd. And so I need to tool this and rework a little bit. But without having that like conscious thought of like, hey, I need to retool this, the slides are like 95% there, right? The extra 5% was deciding to go like this. This I feel like looks really good. I do like B. I agree with you. B looks really good, but the reason I went with this in the long run was A, the visual cohesion with the other ones, but also I felt like I like this a lot, but for some reason, I just felt like this filled the space a lot better. Or not, I wouldn't even say a lot better, just slightly better. It's a long, like the shape of the slide itself is long with no other elements, and this kind of follows the shape of it. Not to say that B didn't look good, like considered B. Would you always err more with readability and sacrifice visual balance? That's a good question. And that just depends on what it is that you're working with. If it's a header, probably. If it's a title, maybe not. We looked at some examples. It was on this. Which one was it? Was it this one? Yeah. Like, look at this, right, Joanne? So this is an odd spacing, but you see how it follows the line of the visual? It looks really good, and this is the right way to do it. Had they just had the hard line here, this white space probably would have looked a little off. But having the shape of the text box follow the shape of this white square or shape, I guess, looks a lot better. So maybe that's not the more readable way to do it, but because it's just a really big title that follows the visual like flow here, it makes more sense. For something like what I'm working on, if I were to do a format like that, even if I were to just like do a simple like right alignment, you'd be like, what? Like that looks kind of odd, right? It's just mirrored of what I chose, but it looks kind of odd. So for most things like headers, subheaders, those types of things, yeah, I would definitely err more towards the readability. But for like big titles that are supposed to make a visual statement, I think in the slides I called it text as graphics or something like that. I'm not going to go find it. But you can do this kind of stuff, right? Because you can still read that no problem, but you also make this connection and it looks really cool. They had another one. Yeah, see, like with their header though, readability, right? Look at this one. Same thing. This one is actually a little bit strange, but it was a visual choice, right? Here and now, right here, right now. So they moved this over. It's actually kind of weird. So that they could have their menu, I'm assuming, right here. But it follows that same kind of like visual cohesion with that first one that we looked at. But they can get away with it. And this one's also weird, right? No cloud storage means no storage limits. But like they follow that same kind of, it's strange, but it's a visual choice. And the way that they laid it out was used as a visual choice rather than just the readability. But had they put this on all of their headers, Joanne, I think it would have looked, imagine if they formatted this one like that. You'd be like, what am I even reading, right? Or like any of these subheaders, anything like that. So for the bigger, more statement pieces, use your artistic freedom. For things that need to be really readable and like it's the function over the form for like its purpose, I would go with the readability in the balance, if that makes sense. Cool. Yeah. So, but what I'm getting at is it's important to just follow or not to just follow the like the kind of the plug and play stuff. Like if I had just added the words to the text box without formatting it, I would have ended up with this. which is like passable, but I don't think it looks as good as this. And if you do that for multiple instances throughout the design, it starts to have these sort of like fracturing cracks across the design, right? Things start to not look quite as cohesive. But if I pay attention to every single piece, it starts to feel a lot better. So if I were to take this and instead of it being a title, let's say it's let's make it even smaller. Yeah, and then let's take this and do 55-ish. That's kind of just like random, right? But that looks good. Okay, so let's pretend that is, I'm going to grab just some random text here. Where's a lot of text? Just kind of like going for it. I'm going to grab this, go back to my page. I'm building, oops. I'm building some content blocks real quick. Just, oh my gosh, just recycling some text here. Take this down to 21, right? Take this down to 26. Sure, that's too close. Go up to like 30, up to like 32. And I'm going to change the font. And this is just like a demo body text. So I'm just going to add it a bunch. I just want it to have like a visual. Yeah, something like that. Okay, perfect. So let's pretend that this is, oops. Let's pretend that this is my, oops, I'm blowing stuff up. My header and my body text. And if I were to duplicate this like that, but my header changed to, I don't know if this is going to change the formatting, but let's find out. I've lost my page now. All right, so maybe that wasn't a great choice, but actually, I'll do it backwards. All right, now I'm set up. Now I'm set up. So pretend that these are two different text blocks, right? And I'm going to copy this text in here, and I'm going to paste it here. Be like, okay, so I pretend that I copied this, I updated my body text, and I need to put the new header text in here, and I slap it in there. Then we run into some issues, right? Now it's not all fitting in the text box. And so I could just say, okay, well, I'll just kind of like pull it out here, and then I'm good. So it all fits. But without giving that like extra thought, the fine-tuning the spacing of the text box, this looks a little strange because of this big gap, which we had already established. So I would go back and I would just pull it out like that far. Just, I feel like that looks better. Like it fits in for whatever reason, it fits in better here with this one than had I just done that, right? So a lot of times when we're rushing through designs and we're just inputting text, like we've copied a page and just needs different text, we don't really pay attention to the layout or the positioning of the words in the headers. But it's important to make sure that they look and feel right, along with like being able to, or being readable, right? And so making sure that they feel right is really important, because if you didn't do that and you just had a bunch of like text boxes like this and they were like all different sizes and like the formatting like made no sense, right? That's what I mean when it starts to develop those fractures across your entire layout, especially once you start to have multiple pages. Those little things start to add up. So but they also add up in the other direction. The more attention that you give the little things, that little bits of attention start to add up and contribute to an overall polish to your design. Something that it's hard to really like put your finger on of like why it looks good, but you just feel that it does, right? So long-winded explanation of just making sure that you are being conscious of the layout of your words as well as just having them fit in the text box, right? That goes a really, really long way. And so that's something you'll need to be conscious of as you get into this week's design challenge, making sure that it looks good and it's representative. And going back to what Joanne said, since words are your only design element, you can think of doing stuff like this, right? Or like imagine this is my body. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And this is like my subtext. And here's like another example, right? So it's like I made this smaller, and I'll make these lines smaller too, or the line height smaller. So I made this smaller, but now does it look weird with just font floating right here? If I didn't think about that, I would just have left it right here, and it kind of looks weird with font just kind of floating on its own. I size this a little bit, but now is it too short? You know what I mean? Like, does that look a little short? Because now we got this weird, like if this is my header, this is my subheader. I'll bold this so there's a little bit more like header, subheader, and body. Like it something about here, this looks strange, right? Like there's this big gap here, shouldn't be that way. Does that look any better, right? Like, how about that? Nope. So my next option would probably be to just size it down just a couple pixels, and then maybe get a little bit closer. Whoa, that's way too small. Sorry. Yeah, so something like that, and then I would take the whole thing and just bring it a little closer, and I feel like that looks a whole lot better, right? So that's what I mean, like being conscious of the arrangement of the words, not just keeping the text boxes exactly the same, because you might have weird floating words or these big like cavities, right? If you try to reposition it. So all I did was resize so it fit on one line, so I didn't have this weird hanging word here, and I didn't have the big cavity here. So that's what I mean. Being conscious of that kind of stuff. What is this? Oh, hello. Being conscious of that stuff goes a long way. Because if I have multiple things laid out consciously, it looks great. But if I had, this was originally what, 32? Oh, it's nothing, 32. Originally I just had this. Looks kind of weird, right? And you have a bunch of text boxes and headers and subheaders that all look weird. The whole design just kind of looks a little water painty, right? Not a whole lot of structure to it. So just being conscious of that. Finding, for example, here, like I changed this size. This would then be my new size for all of them. I don't want my subheader to change sizes per visual unit. So stuff to be aware of and conscious of as you're completing your words only design challenge. Any questions on any of that stuff? We kind of were just going for it. But if that makes sense, for your design challenge, you can also like let's pretend I'll put this over here for now. I'll make this bigger. Let's pretend like that's my header, right? Oh, we got this weird thing going on again. Does that look weird? Like, disregard this for now, right? Like, what if this was just my header? What should I do here? We got this ledge, right? Bold it. Let's see if this helps. Okay. Does it still look weird, or do we feel like it looks okay with this ledge, right? Just because choosing is a long word, we're in a weird position where it's like, is that my best bet? Or do I think about making the whole thing bigger? That's I feel like that looks a lot better, right? It's the ledge is smaller and it feels like the gap is filled. That's something you have to consider when working with this stuff is the presentation of the words. How about this one then? Last thing, and then we'll kind of wrap stuff up. So imagine I have two text boxes that are right next to each other, right? And this is like item 1, item 2 sort of thing. The word, I'm not going to change the words. And I felt good with how my header here works. But then this header, oops, is only one line of words. Now we need to decide how we format this because something fishy is going on here, right? We got this, like the spacing here is far larger than the spacing here, and it looks a little funky. So option A, we move this up. Option B, we move this down. Option C, we keep it as is. What do you say? B? B? What was option B? I don't even remember. Were we moving this down? Was that option B? Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely option B. I said it and then I forgot him. I'm just making it up as I go. Yeah, because this is weird, right? Like it just feels a little like this feels tight and cohesive, like it's a visual unit, but this feels a little like this space is nearly, if not the same as this space. This is 105, 69, not even close, but it feels like it's a lot closer to being the same, right? Like it's kind of weird. So our solution then is this right here. All right, so then let's see if this sways your decision. I'm gonna make this 1500. Oops. 1 second, please. I had a branch on my power line today, and it makes my internet a little jumpy. Actually, I'll just make these smaller. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so let's do this then, actually. I'm gonna make this 900. And I'm gonna make this 26. And I'm gonna make this 16. Change my line, right? You can keep it as the auto, and that's totally fine too. That's a little too squished. All right, that feels good. Okay. Delete that. And what do we decide on? This one. So it kind of looks weird. And then we're just going to increase the size. All right. That looks good. So we're just recreating what we had just created. However, instead of just having two, oh, it did it again. Instead of just having two, we are now going to have three. So this is what we decided for this one. But what if block number 3 also has 3 or 2 lines of text? Where do we put the extra space? Do we still feel like, oops, let me just close that. Do we still feel like the extra space should be down here now that we've got 3? Or do we put our extra space here? A or B? This is A with the extra space below. Now that we have 3 blocks. And B on top. Which one looks less weird? A? We go with A? A? What does everyone else think? So that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Is we had decided that this was good for when there was just 2, right? It made more sense there. But as soon as we added a third, all of a sudden this starts to look a little weird. And so we figured this looked better. But had we not really given it that thought, we probably would have just went with this and we would have had a weird looking like row of content. And you have that weird looking row of content 12 times throughout like a 10-page experience, it starts to feel a little, like I said, water painty, right? We don't want that. So you just need to be more conscious when you're dealing with this type of thing. And just take a look at not just the words, but more so the layout, the visuals, and the digital layout, hence the name of the course, the digital layout of the blocks themselves, right? Because we started with B thinking B was the right move, and then we added a third, and this feels kind of like a weird like skipping stone. So we added it up there. Still not ideal, but I think you're right. I think that's the better way to do it because this would have been like way too weird, and it's better to have these aligned. So we've got like alignment up top and alignment up top here with our body text. So just things to be conscious of when you're laying out text on your digital canvas. And definitely this applies to the design challenge this week. And that goes back to exactly what I said when we kick things off today. Like the intention behind stripping away a lot of your design abilities is so you are more focused on this type of stuff, making sure it looks like a complete design without the luxury of images, pop-ups, you know, that kind of stuff. Doing so just helps you kind of like readdress how you work with design and makes you a little more conscious of how these things work. So any questions about any of that stuff? If not, we're going to wrap it up for today. And we'll kick things off next week. Thank you very much for joining. If you do have questions, again, feel free to ask them in the course hub. We'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Look forward to seeing your introductions, deciding if you are a troll, if you are a werewolf, or if you are a vampire, and I look forward to seeing your submissions for this week's design challenges. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.